And we are live. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Vincent After Hours edition. After we launch our very first episode in conversation after hours with Dr. Vincent, myself, as well as with my co founder, Christian, we have received a lot of questions and a lot of positive responses from you all. So we would like to say thank you so much for making this experience a rewarding one, especially for Christian, because it was indeed his first time on the airwave coming to you live and as well as recorded. And I just would like to ask Christian, how was your first time experience?
I guess it's scary that a whole lot of people listened to it and heard me. But if people got something out of it, then that's really fantastic. That's what we're here for. And I guess I agreed to come back and do it again, so it couldn't have been too bad. So yeah, let's get on with the episode 2, I guess.
And on that note, this is After Hours with Dr. Vincent, and today's episode topic would be around addiction. Addiction always fascinates me because it blurs the line between biology and behavior to the point where I question why would a drink affect someone that significantly in a negative way, whereas you have someone who can drink and who appreciate a glass of alcohol, a bottle of wine, without seemingly any devastating effect to that person's life. And why do some of us need a pill to fall asleep? Some of us have issues when it comes to food, things that are so basic biologically for our lives that you can't just go cold turkey. When people are experiencing issues with food addiction, it's unlike addiction to substances like drugs or alcohol. You can't just go cold turkey and not eating. So today, I want to go a little bit deeper where the science can explain how our brain, body, and mind respond to things that can trigger addiction. At the same time, get a little bit more personal because Christian told me last week, which you probably caught as well if you actually listened to the entire episode of our session last week. He, you personally have an addiction, right?
Well, I do, and in fact, as we were, thinking about the topic for this second episode, I really wanted to explore addiction, and then I did sort of research into it, and sort of discovered that having an addiction to something, and we're not just talking about, alcohol or drugs or those things that you are really bad and that do a lot of damage to people, but there are all different kinds of addiction. And in fact, a very large percentage of the population has an addiction to something. And that, got me asking the question, well, what am I kind of addicted to? And I definitely have one thing. We'll cover that off later because I want to know all about that, in fact. And you're the perfect person to ask because it's, consumption related and biological. But what is the actual science of addiction? Whether or not it be something you consume or something that you do, or something or some way you think. I mean, it's just a really interesting sort of topic.
Or the feelings that you think you need, or the feelings that you can't get out of or get rid of. Because addiction, a lot of times people have bad connotation with the word addiction, and people have stigma against people who are an addict, because the rest of us who don't battle with addiction, or certainly not in a major way, we just think of an addiction is all about willpower. It's something that you have to people who don't have enough power or willpower to say no to, people who struggle with boundaries and limits and self-control. But scientifically, that's not true. Whilst willpower and psychological aspect come into play, addiction, by definition, is a brain and body disorder. You know what? It hijacks the brain system that we call dopamine. So dopamine, to explain this very, very clearly and practically, dopamine is the do it again chemical in our brain. So basically, if you like to do something, if you taste a flavor of food, or if you drink something, or if you do something that gives you that sense of fulfillment, joy, and pleasure, the dopamine system in your brain will capture that, remember that, and then releasing it to your system to make you do it again, because it wants you to feel that fulfillment, pleasure, and achievement again. So addiction really at its very core is really the mutation of this dopamine system in your body.
But
Re-
I mean, is this always bad? Because, for example, someone could be addicted to going to the gym, or someone can be addicted to, running.
in my opinion, addiction is overdoing stuff. If it's doing something to the extreme. And I don't really care whether it's something that is bad, like illicit drug or alcohol, or something that is really healthy, like going to the gym, working, or eating healthily, or obsessed with your health, or obsessed with being healthy and active, and running and play a lot of sports. Addiction, by very
But if
definition,
that like
is a
addiction,
bad thing.
if that addiction like helps you be, really healthy and
That
have a
is
great
called a good
body, and
habit. That is called commitment and discipline. There is a very fine line when it goes beyond the discipline aspect into the addiction. Addiction,
but if
by
it
definition, means that you are unable to control it.
so is something that you feel that you
You
do
need to
every day,
function.
you need to do every day,
And if you don't do it, it cripples you. The
maybe
failure of
even
not
like
doing
having
it.
a morning coffee. I mean, I don't think I'm addicted to coffee, but I wanna have a morning coffee every morning. I enjoy it. It's relaxing to me, and kinda helps me start the day. I know caffeine isn't.
So what you're talking about, if we take away the caffeine part of this coffee consumption every day, what you're talking about is not really an addiction. It is ritual. So the same way that a lot of people, they feel that they can't go to sleep without first having a shower, or how people don't really know or don't really function that well before they have their first shower in the morning. That you're talking about ritual
Okay.
as opposed to addiction. So addiction means that, so ritual, in a similar way, the discipline can turn into addiction, is that when you are in the position where you don't get your coffee, you could literally go violent. You could punch someone, for example, or you could,
I mean, I get a bit grumpy, but
yeah, that's ritual, because you're doing something that is out of your rhythm. But you don't go out there and start knocking down a cafe.
let me ask you,
Okay.
because we were in, Los Angeles together at Expo West, great big, health food and wellness, exhibition, over, I think, 3,000 or 6,000 stalls or something, the biggest exhibition you've ever seen. And, we were staying in Anaheim near Disneyland. I'm the only person who's ever been to Anaheim and not gone to Disneyland, but anyway, and we were going there
I did.
every day.
I went there.
And we were going into Expo, West, every day. But I was very insistent, I remember, on making sure that I got my, coffee, before we sort of started
That,
working. It
that
was actually to the extent where it was kind of a little bit disruptive. I mean, on that first morning before I found the reliable place, I wandered around for 40 minutes trying to find like, an Australian style or Italian style sort of espresso coffee, because I didn't want to have the garbage that they usually serve up in the US.
the percolated coffee, percolated brown liquid that they call coffee. Sorry for our American friends. I know that 20% of the 10,000 of you who follow us and subscribe to us, please don't get offended. But you do need to get better with your coffee. But what you are describing, Christian, is a combination of different factors. I'm not trying to justify your behavior. Not that I remember it to be particularly disruptive, but there is an element of jet lag. Obviously, you would like to get over jet lag because we had days and days ahead of us that were packed with activities. So you need that extra energy in the form of caffeine. And second of all, when you are in a strange place or a new place, it's very human for us to want to latch on even more to our ritual and habit and routine, because we find comfort and safety in following the routine every day, especially when we're in a strange situation, in a new place, meeting new people, or being excited as well as nervous with the days ahead. So what you're describing is a combination of all of those factors and not addiction. When I talk about addiction, is that it is repeated exposure to our brain dopamine system that leads to changes in our brain structure, literal changes, and we call this neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is not a bad thing. It it actually is the thing that allow us to recover from brain injury, for example. It allows us from forming memories and getting over trauma. But at the same time, when you literally change the brain structure when it comes to the dopamine system, you also change the threshold and boundaries and standard when your brain feels that joy and pleasure. So for example, the rest of us, we are happy with just one or two drinks, but there are some people, because they change the dopamine system in their brain so much that they wouldn't get the same kick, the same high, the same pleasure until they're actually blackout drunk.
So how about something like you mentioned melatonin, and that's been in the media kind of recently. Bit of a controversy around melatonin gummies. I mean, good luck to you if you're taking them, but I wouldn't. But melatonin gummies or other forms of melatonin. If you feel that you can't sleep without taking them, taking melatonin, are you addicted to melatonin?
Do you know the irony, Christian, when it comes to melatonin? It is almost impossible for you to be addicted to melatonin, because melatonin is a natural hormone in our body, and your body produces it every day to help you fall asleep, to help you stay asleep, because our body works on what we call a circadian rhythm. It has its own time for certain things, and melatonin is part of that system, part of that rhythm. So sometimes when people are overly tired, overly stressed, or traveling across time zones, it does help for our body to get that boost injection of melatonin. When I say injection, not physical injection, but the boost in the amount of the melatonin in our system. But our body recognizes this substance, and it's almost impossible for our body to get hooked on it. What you're describing is what we call a psychological or psychologically based addiction. So there are two types of addiction: physiological. Physiological means that physically you can't live without it. So usually it is substance related when it comes to
So
alcohol,
that would be
drugs.
drugs and alcohol.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
correct.
yeah.
And and the absence of these drugs or alcohol or the substance will actually make you physically sick, like the withdrawal symptom. Whereas the second one, psychologically based addiction, is what you're describing, when people feel that they literally can't fall asleep, doing something that is
Well,
biologically
they don't,
so common.
or they don't want to try falling asleep, or they don't believe they will fall asleep
Well, they become
without taking it.
dependent. They
Yeah,
become
dependent.
reliant.
So is a dependency an addiction?
In some cases, yes. As a matter of fact, in real life, in practicality and in reality, addiction is always a combination of both physiological aspect as well as psychological aspect. In some cases, for example, drugs or hard drugs or illicit drugs, whilst by definition it is physiologically based, there's a psychological aspect to that, because usually, and I'm not talking for every single case when it comes to relapse, but usually the psychological aspect trigger the need for this substance, and therefore trigger the relapse, which then step into the physiological aspect. So in real life, addiction usually is almost always a combination of these both aspects. But what probably the perfect example to describe as well as differentiate these two aspects of addiction, physiological and psychological, is Viagra.
Okay.
So some people do physiologically and physically need Viagra to achieve an erection during sex.
Well, this is the after dark moment in the
It is after hours.
It's the after hours moment
Is this
in the Dr. Vincent.
after hours where science get personal and but we have to be able to allow our mind to really break this down. So as I was saying before, the perfect example to explore and break down the aspect of physiological as well as psychological when it comes to addiction is Viagra. Some people are physically dependent on Viagra to achieve an erection because of the blood flow, because of the physiological aspect, or post, say, for example, prostate surgery. But some people are only psychologically dependent on it.
And it's worth saying that really to be able to tell the difference and receive the appropriate dosage and treatment and whatever, you need to talk to your GP or a specialist doctor around that. And we're not providing any advice in regards to that sort of thing.
Of course, but
but it's a good illustration.
This is a good analogy because sometimes people's approach to the very same substance can be very different. And some people who have issues with achieving erection, for example, Viagra wouldn't even help them because the problem is not physiological. The problem is psychological. And although people don't always believe this, but our brain is our biggest sex organ. And this also branches into the neuroplasticity of our brain when it comes to addiction. Because earlier I was talking about my fascination with addiction, probably less so when it comes to things that are so obviously addictive or can be so obviously addictive. For example, drug, alcohol, or certain substances. But I am more fascinated with things like food. So how do you overcome this? Is in my brain. My inquisitive brain thinks that how do you then overcome food addiction? Because
Do people know when they're addicted to something? Is that part of it, or
I think I think in to some extent, in some degree, they must realize it. Whether or not they will admit it is a totally different thing. Because I don't know if you know this, but alcoholism, you cannot be diagnosed uh, of being an alcoholic. Alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disorder or condition. You cannot, no one can actually say that, Christian, you're an alcoholic. You would have to come to terms with it yourself.
yeah, so you have to admit it, but obviously there are a number of signs, like, if you're drinking multiple bottles of spirits a day, there's probably a good chance you're an alcoholic.
Yes, and some people, this is the power of addiction. So some people, I mean, I would say 99%, if not 100% of parents will never put their kids in a dangerous situation. But of course, we have seen in the news, we have read in the news, we probably know someone who knows someone who have been driving under the influence of alcohol or substances whilst their kids were in the car. So clearly, the power of addiction, the bind of addiction in your brain must be that strong that it get even stronger compared to your love for your kids.
That's kind of the very, very disturbing aspect of it. Is there any type of like harmless addiction and I'll get to mine in a second, but and mine mightn't really be an addiction. I don't know. I'm about to I want to find out. But are there harmless addictions?
I think the word in the broader term, yes, there is harmless addiction. So, for example, some people, like what you said, have to really do something before they begin their day, or some people have certain things that they do. I know a lot of. I'm very much into performing arts and theater and everything, and I know some people, some actors and actresses, they need they feel that they needed to do something before their debut or before their performance because it calms them down. But by definition, those are not addictions; those are rituals, and I think that's what you're referring to when you talk about harmless addiction.
So does an addiction need to be a kind of almost need to be a substance then, something you're consuming, or
Not necessarily. Addiction needs so in my book, addiction something becomes an addiction when it has power over you. So it doesn't have to be a substance. Some people are addicted to work, so much so that they would rather to spend time working than being with their family. Because at some point, when financial and physical and economic reason is out of the picture, some people just love to work, and that's great. But when their whole identity becomes just about work, when they would rather miss their son or their daughter's graduation and just go to work for a meeting, then that becomes an addiction when they can't say no. And this is the reason why sometimes uh, some people make commitment like dry July or no alcohol January or things like that. Sure, some of them do it as part of a social cohort group activity. Some people do it for charity. But underneath all of those reasons, I bet you they would like to find out, they would like to know that they can say no to alcohol. And that's a great thing to do because if they can, and a lot of times people can do this, that's not an addiction.
so addiction probably then is pretty personal. It's a pretty personal thing.
I think it is very personal, especially when it comes to, say, addiction to certain things. When it comes to, like, some people are not celiac, but they're addicted to being gluten free, for example, or addiction to sleeping supplements like melatonin, addiction to porn, addiction to food. Those are the addiction that I really would like for people to think about because those addictions take place in private. It is between you, the substance, and your addictive behaviors towards those substances. When someone is clearly an alcoholic, when someone is clearly a drug addict, those addictions can be very public. And there's a fallout when it comes to those types of addictions. And then there is an intervention, and hopefully that will then start a domino effect of getting better, like the 12 steps, the AA program, and stuff like that. But when it comes to things like food addiction or addiction towards eating strange things, like, I mean, I don't know if you have read or watched documentaries about people who are addicted to munching wood
Or whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
So that addiction can be very personal because
And hair's a big one, isn't it?
hair is a big one, or
Yeah.
picking on hair.
Yeah.
Those addiction can be even more dangerous, I would argue, because it happens in personal space. For all intents and purpose, usually it doesn't actually affect other people, so they are functioning, but it's not good for them, and they're relying on people around them, whether they would like to admit it or not, to put a stop to this behavior.
So how do you know if you're addicted to something?
When you lose control over certain things, over anything. So when you lose control about not being able to do something, and it physically cripples you, you think about it all the time. You're obsessed with it. Your whole life revolves around it. Then that is a sign that you probably are undergoing an addictive pattern of behaviors. And I do also want to add to your previous comment about addiction and substance. It's not always that. So I would categorize obsession with someone or something is borderline addiction, because when people start stalking someone, they must know that's wrong. They must know that they are being rejected, but they somehow live in the delusion that they're doing the right thing.
So it's kind of like in the family of addiction, but not what you'd typically think of as addiction.
That's correct. And the reason why I define it as an addiction as well, because if we go back to the root cause or root systemic cause of addiction, is the dopamine center, right? So doing those things that they know is wrong fits into that dopamine system. That the feedback that their brain is giving them is that do it again. This is a dopamine. This is dopamine. And they are unable to break that cycle.
Mm.
And therefore, in my book, it is an addiction.
So how do people get help? Is it obviously, your first port of call with anything is your general practitioner, but it's not just a physical thing, is it? It's more than that.
So again, thank you for reminding us that your GP is there as a first point of contact whenever you have concern about your health, whenever you are worried about someone, whenever you want to address medical and be it psychological or physiological issues in your life, because they are there to help and support you, and they will direct you to a specialist
They
or
open the
people.
door to the
They open the
specialist.
door for specialists and
Yeah.
help to help you overcome things like addiction or even other things too. And I would like to start with that. But if we talk about overcoming addiction, even the what in your book what you call the harmless one, like any other problem in our life, where be it psychological or physiological, you need to be aware first. You cannot solve a problem without being aware and admitting that you have a
So
problem.
I hate the word mindfulness, like it's just a terrible word. But that's what you're talking about. And
No, I'm not talking about mindfulness, because mindfulness, and we need a special episode for that, because mindfulness has now become the scapegoat for a lot of things. And I understand what you're saying when you say that you hate the word mindfulness, because it has been hijacked with certain things that are not actually true to the core root of mindfulness. What you're talking is not that.
is
What
it
I
is
was
it
saying
like
is not that.
self-reflection?
It's self-reflection. Uh, One thing that I always do in the morning, and again, this is not addiction. I can do it without. I can live without, but I do it as part of my routine and ritual. Is that after I brush my teeth, I would look at my reflection in the mirror. I would say, "Good morning. Have a great day." The reason why I said that is because at the end of the day, what I want to do or what I want to achieve is that the person that I look in the mirror, who then looks back at me, is the person that I'm happy with, is the person that I envision myself to be. So not only visually, but also in terms of the achievement, behavior, uh, mindset, all of those things. And I feel that sometimes we lack that, because people associate self reflection with being selfish, with being narcissistic. But I do think that we need to start from ourselves.
Okay, so let's talk about my addiction, but I'm not sure if it's an addiction or it's a ritual or it's just something I like doing. So I want to talk about it, and also I want to ask you about kind of the substances and that sort of stuff in general, because it definitely connects back through to it's just sort of general health, and we're not talking about hard drugs here, people. Nothing like that. I'm not addicted to smoking or anything like that.
Well, by definition, caffeine is a drug, but I know you're not talking about that. But caffeine is a drug.
Yeah.
It's just a legalized drug in a way.
Yeah. So we've had this discussion now. I feel a little bit more educated about addiction, so I'm not sure whether or not I'm addicted or I'm not. But uh, uh, sugar-free soft drinks. I won't name the actual brand that
I
I.
would. Pepsi Max.
Okay, I'm addicted to Pepsi Max. Or on reflection, I consider myself pretty addicted to Pepsi Max. In fact, just this morning I came into the office and there was no Pepsi Max in the office fridge, and I had to tell everybody about that. And really, I was telling them that to try and make sure that the Pepsi Max would appear in the office fridge um, for the next time that I was here. But I probably drink more than a liter a day of of that. Now, what is I like the flavor of it. I consider it kind of my only vice. Like
Have you have you committed crime trying to get that Pepsi Max?
no, I haven't, but I'd say I get grumpy if I don't get it. I mean, it's just something I really enjoy
Have you caused a
drinking.
relationship breakdown with your coworkers or with your friends or family over the absence of Pepsi Max?
Well, maybe almost this morning, but not really, I guess. I mean, you were in the office. I sort of said it pretty calmly. Maybe if there wasn't any Pepsi Max in the office fridge, The next time I'm here, or certainly, the week after or something, well, I'd probably get a little bit more vocal, um, kind of, about it. And on reflection, that's probably not a good thing. I mean, it's probably not a good thing to get stuck into your work colleagues about not having Pepsi
So,
Max in the fridge.
so thank you for telling us this affliction of yours, because it takes bravery to actually do that, to actually admit that you think that you might have a problem around this thing, and around anything. It takes bravery to actually say it out loud, especially when it's been broadcast to a lot of people. But what you probably don't even realize that you're doing is you have taken the first step towards trying to overcome your addiction, which is
No, but I have
awareness.
no wish to not drink Pepsi Max. Like, as I say, I consider it the only kind of maybe bad thing that I do to myself.
I've known you for over 10 years now, and I can confidently say that that is what you would classify as harmless addiction, but what I would scientifically define as ritual. So there are certain things that make you crave Pepsi Max. The first one is caffeine. As I said before, caffeine is a legalized drug. It is a substance that really changes your uh, s- the chemistry of your brain, how you receive the stimulation, how you respond with neurotransmitters, and how your neurons fires off signals and messages across your brain and body. So Pepsi Max contains caffeine, which is a stimulant that essentially increase your dopamine and alertness. So the reason why people who drink coffee or Coke or Pepsi Max every day, sort of kind of, not realizing that is because your body is building tolerance or has built tolerance. People who have never drunk coffee before, or people who don't regularly drink coffee, will have a lot more significant effect from drinking a cup of coffee compared to us who drink one or two coffee every day. And without that, even when you don't realize it, without that supply of caffeine, in your case, Pepsi Max, that creates a withdrawal symptoms. And that is the first thing that trigger your brain to ask you or to tell you that you want this thing.
I thought,
Because at its very core, your brain is love survival. Your brain, the first and only concern when it comes to your brain is to make your brain happy. And this thing makes you happy.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess, in all reality, I probably wasn't as concerned about the caffeine content than maybe I was a bit more concerned about the artificial sweeteners, because you read various things around that, and I have no idea what artificial sweeteners do to your pancreas or something like that. I'd be fascinated one time.
Whenever you try to cheat your body, there are consequences. The same thing when it comes to artificial sweeteners. People think that just because they are non-caloric sweetener, so they don't have to deal with the excess sugar and with the excess calorie that they then have to burn so that they don't get overweight. Notice I didn't use the F word. Artificial sweetener, it doesn't mean that they don't come with consequences, because they activate the sweet taste response in your brain. It triggers dopamine in your brain reward system without
So I am addicted to this stuff.
you are exhibiting a dopamine based behavior that can lead to missing it when you don't have it.
No, I've woken up at like 4 o'clock in the morning with like a craving to drink some.
Well, then
That's pretty bad. So
then maybe there is a
is
form
that
of
like
addiction.
really?
I so if you listen,
Like,
for
that
those
doesn't
who
happen all the time or whatever, but I do drink an incredible amount. I do drink a lot of it. I drink more of it than I think I should, and I don't know what the
do
artificial
you
sweetener
do
is
you
in.
do you think that, so let me finish with the artificial sweetener
Yeah.
before we go onto that 4 o'clock at 4 o'clock in the morning craving, because that's concerning. So basically, with the artificial sweetener, over time, it keeps your it keeps your sweet receptor alive without an actual feedback, without an actual sweetness in your body. So it's almost like if you go out in a bar and you're dancing with someone, and it triggers all of your response to the stimulus, but then you're not actually achieving anything. You're not actually getting that person's number. You're not actually having conversation. It's basically being friend zoned by artificial sweetener, because they are sugary. They taste like sugar. They're sweet, but they offer nothing.
But it's cheating on me.
Yes, and it's cheating on you, because that it takes away all of your insulin response. And this is the reason why I said that it doesn't come without consequences.
But I mean, I couldn't replace it with like a fully sweetened or sugar based soft drink. I'd become overweight, not being allowed to use the F word.
So this is the thing. What Similar to food addiction, you can't just take away the food. You have to improve the relationship with that substance, with that drink, with that food, with that Pepsi Max. Because what you probably haven't realized, and hopefully you will go away and think about it and then probably update us, there is a psychological journey whenever you open a can of Pepsi Max. It fizzes you up. You forgot to you left out one very particular aspect of your consumption behavior when it comes to Pepsi Max. You get really upset when you are being made to drink from the can. It has to be poured into a glass, not a cup, into a glass. So that the whole thing forms a pattern, forms a ritual, forms a habit that your brain takes comfort in. And that can be borderline psychologically addictive.
Wow. But seriously, tell me more about the artificial sweeteners and what they kind of like. Are artificial sweeteners okay?
They are. I'm really glad that you asked me this question, because by definition, scientifically, artificial sweeteners are okay. Not great, not bad. They're just okay. And bar from certain chemically synthesized one, uh, artificial sweetener is quite neutral when it comes to the effect to our body. It is the overconsumption of it that can really lead to devastating and long-term damage. Things like disrupting your gut microbiome. A lot of people don't think.
Okay, so I didn't know about that. So I mean, I must be doing that. What do I do to fix it? if in the end I'm not reducing my consumption of artificial sweetness.
it takes more than a 30-40 minutes episode to solve all of your problems.
Maybe we should come back to that. We should come back to gut problems at some sort.
But the issue with the disruption of your gut microbiome and its environment and homeostatic environment is that it then triggers inflammation. So perhaps you don't necessarily brunt the worst result or effect of this consumption of Pepsi Max and the disruption of your gut microbiome is because you also take activated phenolics every day. So
should I up my consumption of activated phenolics to try and protect my gut biome from the damage I'm kind of doing to it?
Yes, that's one way of doing that, but I also think that there is a secondary way of doing that, which probably not as easy, is by reducing the consumption or managing your consumption of Pepsi Max. Because at the end of the day, while certain habits, certain substances, certain supplements can help offset the damage of bad behaviors when it comes to our health, the first and more important thing to do is to remove or to manage that bad behavior when it comes to our health. Sure, upping your dosage of activated phenolics can help reducing this cellular damage as well as inflammation that is caused by overconsumption of Pepsi Max, but it doesn't really reset your relationship with Pepsi Max. It still fits into that dopamine-based reward system, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And I really do think that whilst it is, I mean, you have convinced me now that it is a form of addiction. I mean, for the first 3/4 of this episode, I kept defending it and said that that's just a routine and ritual. But the more that you describe and the more that you talk about it, I do think that perhaps there is an addiction behavior when it comes to your relationship with Pepsi Max. And I do
And it's weird that it's just that one thing. I mean, it's seriously just that one thing.
And I do think that the fact that you kept saying that it is just that one thing and that's your only vice, what you're saying is you're actually trying to subconsciously defend this
Yeah, because I like doing it. I
behavior
like drinking it.
whilst recognizing it's bad, because unlike drug and alcohol, the social stigma about a Pepsi Max addiction is low or non-existent. You can drink liters of Pepsi Max and people laugh it off. I mean, you just chuckle because it is by definition a little bit funny. And sometimes you probably think that this is my only vice. It's much less damaging than being addicted to booze, for example. However, if you think about it a lot, that's probably your self-awareness wanting an interruption, maybe, or maybe not so much of intervention. We are very busy in our business at the moment. I do not have time to hold an intervention for you for your Pepsi Max.
Does this mean we'll have
consumption.
Pepsi Max in the work fridge sometime over the next few days?
Perhaps, but what you need, if you really are concerned about that, you need support.
I'm not sure I'm concerned about it. I was especially interested to know what it might be doing to my body biologically. I mean, you talked about caffeine, and I was probably more interested in, because I kind of understand caffeine, but I was much more interested in the artificial sweeteners.
Here's a question for you: is it the same? Does your behavior towards Pepsi Max mimic or being replicated with other sugar-free soda?
No, not really, because I just like the flavor of that particular one, I guess. It's just I drink so much of it.
So this is fun fact. Did you know that Pepsi, including Pepsi Max, taste the way they taste is by design?
Of course.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
And did you know the reasoning behind it?
They want you to drink a lot.
No, actually no.
Oh, okay.
What the reason why they taste the way that they taste when it comes to Pepsi versus how Coca-Cola tastes like is because they launched this really big marketing campaign whereas they challenge people to blind taste Pepsi versus Coke.
Yeah.
And the reason why they tailor the flavor of their their flavor of their cola to be sweeter first and fizzy later is
Really?
because your brain is immediately hooked onto something that is sweet.
Okay.
And during this taste test challenge, people only take 1 or 2 mouthfuls and they have to immediately make their decision and make their choice.
So they're always going to go for the sweet one.
They will always go for the sweet one. And
Okay.
that's how Pepsi probably trick your brain into liking it.
Wow. Okay. Well, hopefully we don't get any letters from Coke or Pepsi complaining about this episode.
Well, if they do give us letter, we have this proposition of how to make their cola healthier. Because you know what? When I did my PhD, because I have one supervisor who is so heavy in the biochemistry and molecular nutrition of the science that I was studying, and the other supervisor, both are my main supervisors. The other supervisor is more concerned or focused with the food science and engineering of it all. So I remember that at that time, I thought that I was wasting a semester just to make sure that this extract can withstand high temperature processing.
Are you saying we could put activated phenolics in cola?
We certainly can.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So people don't know that the reason why formulating cola is so difficult and complicated because the pH of this fizzy drink is actually really low. And that's the reason why animal or tooth health is also one of the concerns of consuming a lot of soda or fizzy drinks. But what I was saying was that not a lot of natural substances, aside from sugar, obviously, cane sugar, can survive and still function and deliver result at that harsh environment. So the pH is very low. It's very acidic. Our extract because it is designed to be able to survive our stomach acid, which is really, really acidic, in order to be absorbed in the intestine of our body. Our extract can actually survive this harsh environment and processing condition of cola drinks.
So this could be a new thing. This could be like a healthy cola.
We can explore. So if Pepsi or Coke are listening to this, please do reach out. Not with not with cease and desist letter. I really would like to talk to your formulator department, because I also
That'd be amazing to have a healthy cola. I mean, that'd be amazing.
a true healthy cola, not just something with artificial sweetener.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
they have this health halo that they think, or they people perceive that they are healthier, but they are actually not.
Yeah.
And I do want to to take charge in terms of revolutionist. I lost my word. In terms of transforming this behavior, because like it or not, people are not going to give up their soda. You are not going to give up your
There's
Pepsi
no
Max.
way I'm going to stop drinking Pepsi Max.
Another way to solve this issue for you and for a lot of other people is by making the soda healthier.
I would love that. That would be good. That would give me some comfort.
So let's go back to our topic of the week when it comes to our after hours talk. I do believe that the first step of solving a problem is recognizing that you have a problem. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery when it comes to admitting that you have a problem. Not just about shame, not just about stigma. It's more about self identity. Sometimes it's harder to admit that we have a problem to ourselves, because oftentimes we are our self harshest critic. So if any of you think that you're experiencing the hardship of addiction, consider seeking help. But whilst waiting for help, or whilst seeking for help, I also think that it's very important for you to be compassionate towards yourself, because it is not a sign of weakness to have a problem, including addiction. And I do think that one of the things that I really like from Australian culture, I came here as an Indonesian citizen, and now I'm an Australian for more than a decade now. But one of the things that I really, really value when it comes to my Australianness is that people, Australians are very kind. They are immediately always very helpful. One thing though that I notice is that whilst we Aussies are really good at being kind to other people, sometimes we forget to be kind to ourselves.
That's so true. Yeah.
And on that note, we already have 11 questions coming from you guys. I promise you we will get to it. Christian is in charge of sorting the questions, and we will answer them next week on our third episode of After Hours with Dr. Vincent. And on that note, is there anything else that you want to add?
No, thank you very much. This has been such an interesting conversation. Thank you.
And thank you so much for being kind to Christian. He came back for the second episode. So please do send us your comments, your questions, and hopefully Christian will be back again next week. And on that note, I just want to remind you that today is your day to be healthier and happier. See you later. Bye-bye.